Good morning, everyone. Before we begin, I want you to be sure to select your preferred language, Spanish or English, in the bottom toolbar. You can see here the slide indicates how to do that if you do not know how. Now, in addition to that, if you need any additional assistance, so if you're having trouble with sound or interpretation, we would like for you to use the chat because we have a member of our team who will be able to reach out and to support you. Hello, 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 and welcome to the 2021 West Contra Costa Education Fair. My name is Dr. Fatima Allen, and we are thrilled you could join us for this session, which is called a candid conversation about the African American student experience in our schools. Over the next 75 minutes, now 74, we will hear from a talented panel who will share their insights and ideas. We will begin with some preset questions and then open up to questions from the audience. Just some quick housekeeping items. This session will be recorded and posted on the EdFair website and HOVA app. Therefore, families who were not able to attend today have an opportunity to still watch the sessions. Please be sure to complete the Google form that is linked in the chat. This form enters you into the conference raffle and provides the information needed to mail your conference gift. Raffle prizes include a Chromebook, a $250 gift card, and an Amazon Fire. For those joining by phone, please text 510-734-2644 to complete the attendance form via text. And I'll repeat the phone number again, 510-734-2664. If you haven't already, please download the app, WHOVA. This app will enable you to access all the conference session links, read bios of the panelists, explore community organizations in the exhibitor section, and view pre-recorded sessions covering a range of topics. The conference code is ED, F as in Frank, AIR 2021. That is EdFair 2021. You can also visit the WCC Education Fair website. Check out www.wccedfair.com to find videos and agenda details. All sessions will be archived here. Lastly, there's a session feedback form for every single session found in the app, the HOVA app. Please take a few minutes to complete the form after this session. Your feedback is vital to the planning of the 2022 Education Fair. You can influence it. Now that we are done with logistics, let's get to the exciting part. I'd like to welcome our panelists. So panelists, thank you so much for taking time to join us today and share your experience. In 30 seconds or less, because your bio is available to everyone, please tell us your name and what brings you to this panel today. More complete bios, like I mentioned, of our panelists can be found on the website and the HOVA app. So I'll start with Lakeisha Young. In 30 seconds or less, please tell us your name and what brings you to this panel today.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lakeisha Young, co-founder and CEO of the Oakland Reach. And what brings me here today is to bring a parent voice. Obviously, we're based in Oakland, but to just bring a parent voice and real solutions that parents are designing, Black parents, to make sure that our babies are going to college.
Thank you. Michael Gonzalez.
Good morning, everybody. I just noticed I'm the only one without any kind of title there, so I guess I'm free to just talk and talk and talk.
No, you still have 30 seconds or less, and it starts now.
Okay, I am the pastor of Beautiful Redeemer Ministries in Richmond, California. I'm a lifelong educator and educational researcher, as well as a parent of four and a grandparent of one that have attended this school district. And so I am here for personal and professional reasons.
Thank you. Now we have Miss Audrey Shields.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Audrey Shields. I'm a local practicing attorney, practicing family law and probate. I am a volunteer in the educational district. I work with the Asset organization as a volunteer, which are the Black parents. I work with the Council of Elders, which is a Black grandparents organization. And I work with the NAACP Youth Council in a program I am pitching now called ACTSO, which is the Academic, Cultural, Technological, and Scientific Olympics of the Mind, a 42-year-old program that's practiced nationwide by the NAACP. And I want your high school students to come and participate this year. We start next week on the 26th of January. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, one more thing. Michael
No,
Gonzalez's daughter was a winner, was a national winner.
Miss Audrey Shields. We
Yes,
got to move on.
okay,
Thank
there you
you.
go. Thank you.
Now I would like to call on Miss Jasmine Jones.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jasmine Jones. I'm the executive director of the West Contra Costa Public Education Fund. I was born and raised in Richmond. I'm a graduate of WCCUSD schools. I'm a mother to a preschooler, soon to be kindergartner, little amazing boy named King. I wanted to make sure he didn't forget. And I want to bring lived experience to kind of navigating these systems and getting to where I am today, given my background. And also to call for greater investments in supports and strategies that disrupt inequity and promote Black excellence.
Thank you. Now, Mr. William McGee.
Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year to you as well. My name is William McGee. I'm the director of the Office of African American Student Achievement. And what brings me to this work is just my lived experience. Being a student in public education, was very intelligent, but struggling because I just was not engaged. My mother, a 40-year retired teacher. I always knew I had to go to college, eventually went to college, but then the struggles I faced in high school, almost not graduating on time, that's what brings me to this work, really trying to get the best outcomes for our children, our community, and our Black employees and educators.
Thank you. Miss Goldie Williams.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Goldie Williams. I am the CEO of, excuse me, AGW Consulting, and our focus is diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I do this training with corporate organizations. I wrote notes, y'all. I'm the recent co-chair of ASAT in the WCCUSD. I'm a parent and a grandparent, and that's the most important thing to me. I'm a community educator, and I'm here because I'm looking for long-term solutions for our kids. I'm not looking for Band-Aids. I'm not looking for, because everybody else is talking about African Americans suddenly. I'm not looking for those fixes. I'm looking for us to be able to create community, to be here and support our kids ongoing. Some of it is a community goal for our kids to reach their level of success, and some of it is a personal goal. In my opinion, I believe that how we deposit into our kids now will be how our kids will treat us as we become older adults. So some of it is personal and some of it is community.
Thank you. Now I would like Casey Robinson.
Good morning, all. My name is Casey Robinson. I am the executive director or principal of Summit K2, which is in El Cerrito. We serve mostly students who actually live in Richmond. And I am here I always tell people like I'm here on purpose, and I know that my reason for breathing is to support Black children and Black families. And so whenever I have an opportunity to do that, I say yes. So I said yes.
Thank you. I would like to now call Marissa Davis.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marissa Davis. I'm a student at Middle College High School, and I'm here today to bring a little insight on what it's like being an African American student in the schools today.
Okay. All right. Now it's time to get to work. All right. So now you will have an opportunity to answer some questions. And the first question I would like for you to answer, and I'm going to choose individuals to answer certain questions. I will give you about 2 minutes to answer the question because I want an opportunity for members of the audience, and I have a few of my own to ask of you. So I will remind you. So I'm going to place myself on mute. When I turn off my mute, that's the indication that we need to wrap up. So thank you for just try to keep me in speaker in the screen so you know when I pop up if possible. So our first question for today: what are the current conditions for African American students in our schools? And Marissa, if you would just oblige me and just allow me to call on you first, because you are the one who is experiencing what our school is like today.
Um, since I go to Middle College, it's pretty much a small school. So Black students are kind of the underpopulated group. But the conditions are pretty good. I would say it's not much different from any other student besides, of course, like the racial jokes and the N-word saying by other students. But I'd say that the faculty handles it pretty well when we come to them about it. And yeah, I would say it's pretty well.
Thank you. I didn't even need a timer for you, girl. Thank you, Marissa. Um, oh, I'm sorry. Ebony, do we have one other person on the panel that I missed? Apologies. Ebony? Ebony? Okay, I don't know if Ebony is here. So Miss Goldie, can you also share your experience? And I'm going to restart the time for 2 minutes. The experience of African American students in our school, since you are a parent of African American students who have either graduated or currently enrolled, and a grandmama of 2 preschoolers.
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is we're in a state of emergency for our students. And it's important, in my opinion, that we keep in mind that we know that what the statistics say, meaning where our kids are performing and where they're not, and it hasn't changed much. So we're in a state of emergency. If we're talking about right now within the pandemic, I'm a cheer coach and I have a lot of connections in the community. So I do intentionally ask a lot of questions. So I'm gonna tell you what students are saying. Our African-American students, some of them have checked out. Some of them still are not able to gain access. And I don't know if there's anyone looking for them per se. Some students are on, and just to be honest with you, some students are doing really well and doing better in pandemic times being online than they did in the classroom. And then one concern for me is a lot of our students, it's mental health. I don't care who the student is. Our mental health for our students is really something that we need to look at, because I'm talking to kids that are either talking about they just got accepted to college and feel like, what's the purpose because of the pandemic? So I have kids that are saying, why should I do my college applications? I'm just going to be at home. So I think that the state that what we need to look at as an African-American community is how to reach our babies so they can understand that this is temporary and there's going to come a time where they're going to need all of this. And you didn't have to use the timer.
And I didn't have to use the timer for my neighbor. All right, girl. Now, Casey, I want to call on you to answer this question as well.
Yeah. I want to kind of go back a little bit to Marissa's point. I was just thinking about how resilient our students are, and to hear that even through all that she said, it was powerful to me when she said, yeah, even when students are using the N-word, our faculty and our staff handle that pretty well. And so it's a good experience. And I just thought, wow, young people still have to deal with so much, and are able to then come on the other side to say, but it's good, but it's good. And so I just appreciate the optimism, Marissa, and the ability to see and recognize, like, and yes, the sun rises again. And I think that our kids know that, and so they have to experience daily life like that. I think the current conditions, as Goldie, as Ms. Williams said, is true. We're seeing that in our students. We see students who are struggling mightily during these times, and families are at work and they are a young person. We have students who are, some are taking care of little siblings, and so it's a lot of, and not like changing diapers, taking care of little siblings, but just like multiple children at home attempting to engage in learning, and doing so without a lot of supervision, because their parent has to go to work to pay the mortgage and pay the bills, and it is a challenge. And so what we are finding as well, like was stated already, just the mental health is really struggling. And so I think schools are attempting to provide additional mental health services and support, really thinking about connection as that first thing that we do, before we ask you about your homework, but first, how are you? I think students are feeling invisible, and pushed to the side. And so that's why we don't often see a lot of screens on in classes. I work for a middle school, and so I always say that it's the time when you want to be the most invisible. And unfortunately, through distance learning, it allows you to be very, very invisible. And so it's a big challenge. And so I think invisibility is one of those things that our kids feel like they want, but they don't actually need. We need to see them.
Thank you. So the next question is, what are the top three? No, what solutions ideas have you seen that have made a difference for a positive difference for African American students? And for this, I'm going to ask Keisha to get us started on that one.
Hi, thank you. I love that question. Because as we know, we've been in an education crisis long before we've been in a health crisis for a very long time in terms of supporting our Black kids. I think that this has also presented an opportunity to be innovative. It's also created an opportunity for us to, how they say, they have that saying of like, no one's coming to save us. I think we took that literally in Oakland, and we built, and some of you guys may have heard about it in the news or things of that nature, but we built a virtual hub. And that hub has provided both academic and socioeconomic supports to Black families and students. In the summer, we created the hub. The first phase of the hub was actually a school. We hired 14 teachers, and we put in the curriculum and the supports that we knew were important for our families. Every family had a family liaison. So it's like an educational social worker, someone to support them throughout. We hired our own tech support. We provided families with stipends. We brought in the reading curriculum that we know is backed by the science of reading, and not just in the political debates that we've had to deal with in Oakland in terms of what helps kids read. And at the end of that 5 weeks, we saw our kids go up an average of 2 reading levels, right? And these is a bunch of mamas and grandmamas, right? And uncles and daddies coming together and really building this. So I would say that, like, as hard as this is, as a people, we are not foreign to struggle. And when I look through history, I've seen the biggest things for our communities happen out of these kind of struggles, right? And I believe that we were able to build this hub as a result of that. And so we went from serving 200 students in the summer to serving 375 in the fall. And now we are expanding our hubs into Oakland Unified School District schools. So again, would love to talk more and other questions, but that is an example of something that a solution that we've created to make sure that our babies are actually staying on the pipeline to college and away from the pipeline of prison.
Thank you. Um, I want to also ask Jasmine to answer this question as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. I feel like Lakeisha really laid out what I was going to say. I had like 2 bullet points, right? And they're really simple. It's caring adults and targeted investments or interventions, right? And so I'm going to say my lived experience. I went to schools in WCC USD, graduated from El Cerrito High School. And I was one of those kids that was like in the middle of the road. I was a 3.1, 3.2, maybe 3.5. Had parents at home, but, wasn't really sure whether or not I was going to go to college. What are the things that I was going to do? I didn't see a lot of that happening in my community or in my family. And so that wasn't necessarily the track that I thought I was going to be on, just going to get a job. But through having a caring adult in our college and career department and a few of my teachers who were not Black, but saw me and saw my brilliance and said, hey, let me invest in you. Let me talk to you. Let me have these conversations with you. Let me give you these resources, these pamphlets. Why don't you go look at this online? And that's how I started to decide that I was going to go to college, right? So when you have caring adults that are coming into your life and showing you the way, that is a strategy I think that we need to start investing in. And an example of this is De Anza High School. De Anza High School has a community of folks who are really wrapping around their students and supporting them to go off to college. Another area was the targeted investments piece. And so in strategies, how are we getting behind the things that, as Lakeisha said, are scientifically backed to support our kids? Not all in the political debates and all that, but what's the science around supporting our students and how do we really invest in those things? So an example of this is at Kennedy High School, the new principal there was like, hey, if we're gonna get more of our Black students going to college, we're going to have recruiters that are Black. And so how are we going to hire Black counselors to be able to address this gap? And if we can't go through the school district to do it, how do we partner with other people in the community? So the Ed Fund is actually a fiscal sponsor of a counselor that will be at Kennedy supporting Black students there. And so that's the things that I think can support our students.
Thank you. So for the next question, what are visible policies and practices that reflect healthy versus unhealthy conditions for African American students and families? And for this one, I want to bring in one of the panelists, Ebony. Hi, Ebony. Can you just give a 30-second intro and then answer the question? I'm giving each panelist about 2 minutes to answer. I'm gonna make it probably a minute and a half. It'll be 2 minutes so that we can open up the floor to questions from the audience.
Okay, no problem. Hello, everyone. My name is Ebony Blake. I am a parent and also an employee of the community. I provide mental health support to children throughout West Contra Costa County. And I am also the lead of West County Mandarin School for the APAC community. So yeah, I'm glad to be here. And can you please repeat the question, Fatima, the last one?
So the question is, what are visible policies and practices that reflect healthy versus unhealthy conditions for African American students and families?
Some of the practices that we have implemented with my particular organization is to make sure that, the children are strengthened. It's the strength-based. You come from a strength-based perspective by identifying, a child's strengths and not their deficits. And when you focus on that, you seem to be able to get the most out of children when you compliment them or share their experiences. But when you don't and you exclude them and kind of push them in the corner, that makes them be isolated and not want to engage and not want to address certain issues. And we never see a good outcome. But when you know, give into, I mean, when you talk to that child and you put into them, you know, something positive, you get a positive outcome.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Now I would like to ask Will McGee to respond to the same question.
So I think some of the policies and practices that the district has implemented are, you know, the flexibility. So we're trying to figure out how we don't allow students to earn an F. We're trying to figure out the changes that we can make because this is new, right? This pandemic has exacerbated an already dire situation, which was that we were not educating Black children properly and well anyway. And so now we're looking at how do we provide opportunities for success. And then I think I heard Ms. Williams mention something about children who are missing. We need to figure out ways to capture those children as well. And I think that's something that we should have been done, right? And there's this struggle of how to do it. And so that's one of the things I do feel that's not helping our students. And so we're trying to figure out how we can capture the most needy students who haven't been engaged, who haven't been attending, and really reach out to them to make contact. And we've been talking with somebody who said, you know, we can come in and do some stuff. Would you guys accept if the child attended 4 out of 10 days? And I said, 4 out of 10 is better than 0 out of 10, right? So those are things that we have to figure out. And I believe that the attendance and engagement is something that's a good thing, but it is something that we're struggling with. And we do have to figure out as an organization how to attack that and really get our children back to school.
Thank you so much. So I would like for us to answer one other question here. What are some unique needs of African American students and families that need to be addressed? So I would like to ask Michael to respond to that one.
Thank you. First of all, just in terms of its biggest picture, I think the school district has to look at itself and find out why is it failing all children, not just Black children. Why is it failing all children? Because until it answers that question, it won't be able to answer the question of how do you fix whatever are the issues around African American children. But in terms of unique needs, I think it's really important for African American children to see other African Americans at every level, at the level of direct support and holding your hand and encouraging you. And that extends not only to the children, but to the families as well. I think that from my lived experience, I see that a lot of African Americans can really work well when we work together. And we've been prevented from working together because we were brought here to work for somebody else. But as we begin to work for ourselves, we have to learn how to work together, and I think we get better outcomes. Without going too deeply, I think that the other thing that African American students need is they need to be better protected. I am still stuck on the very first thing that the very first young lady said about dealing with the N-word. And she said N-word and something else. I don't remember what the something else was. But in terms of a school district, I know the culture. You know, I'm not unfamiliar with the culture. And I know a lot of people use that word. But my thing is, as an academic institution, we have to set ourselves apart. And there needs to be a significant policy discussion around that, because you cannot have that level of hostility, even if it's benign. You can't have it in an environment without it polluting that environment. And so the unique needs are number one, see more African Americans at all levels in the system teach and expect us to work collaboratively, not only with the students, but also with the parents. And then number three, we have to create a safer environment where African American students, I believe it was Marissa who said it, but I'm not sure, where they have to deal with, I mean, just so casually have to deal with things that no one else has to deal with. And we need to do that immediately.
Thank you. Now I would like Ms. Audrey to answer the same question, please.
Well, I think Michael really hit the nail on the head. I think African American students need to feel validated. I think often our students feel invisible within their schools. They don't see a lot of African American teachers around or a lot of faculty and staff around. The things that inspired me to go higher, to do higher, and that education was of value were the individuals who appeared in my life and who were willing to work with me one-on-one to support my learning, who told me and made me confident that I can learn. Fortunately, I was raised during the Black Power civil rights movement, and we did a lot of civil rights work. We did a lot of marching and protesting. James Brown came out with "I'm Black and I'm Proud," and I'm kind of feeling that our kids are not feeling that as much as they need to feel it now. And I think small group instruction would be very valuable to our children. Have our kids working with Black educators or educators who love them in small groups and one-on-one. I think those are the kind of solutions that will make a difference for our children.
Thank you so much.
Can I add something really quickly? I'm sorry. I know you probably have.
You messing with my time, Jasmine.
I'm sorry, can I just add one?
You got like 10 seconds, Jasmine.
Okay, thank you, Fatima. I just want to underscore the protection piece there that Mr. Gonzalez and Goldie brought up, because in this current climate, I think we're seeing this kind of Black-white dynamic, or feeling like, you know, it's the Black issue. And I think that we need to all get behind that. It's not just the Black issue that we're experiencing in this country right now. It's everybody's issue, and everybody needs to come behind centering Black needs. So I just wanted to say that real quick.
All right, girl. Thank you, Jasmine. All right. So I have one question. All right. So we've had Black board members. We've had Black teachers. We've had Black elected officials in the assembly and Congress. So, and we even have a Black superintendent of instruction, and we have not moved the needle for our Black children. So I'm gonna call it out right now. More recently, Dr. Shirley Weber, who has advocated for additional funding for Black children, halted at in Sacramento in doing that because Black students have historically been the lowest performing group in the state of California. She will now become the California Secretary of State. Now, how do you think her absence in the Capitol will impact the urgency for us as a state to improve the quality of education numerically, not qualitatively, quantitatively for Black students? In essence, how much longer are we going to have to wait for Black students and all students to be a priority and to fix the system? And I would like Lakeisha to answer that question first.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question, because I don't think we should be waiting. And I think that, you know, the power is within us. You know, I think part of, and can you, I know you were given a little bit of context. Can you quickly give that context again?
So I'm just saying we've had Black board members, we've had Black assistant superintendents, we've had people in leadership positions. At one point, West Contra Costa had a predominantly Black board with people in superintendent positions, cabinet level positions. We have a Black superintendent of instruction. We have not moved the needle for Black children with all of that in place. Right. So, and Dr. Shirley Weber was advocating for additional funding for specifically for Black students. And we changed the language. They changed the language to historically lowest performing students, which is great. That's fine. Now she's going to be the secretary, she's transitioning out of that role. So how do you think her absence in the Capitol will impact students' access and the priority, the urgency to access high quality education? And how much longer? And that's why the question, how much longer do we wait?
Right. So I can't speak directly to Shirley. I'll give two examples when we start talking about having Black folks in positions of power, and then how does it impact our Black kids, right? And I think that we have to hold our Black leaders accountable just like anyone else, right? And so two examples I can give around, and I think again, same for West Contra Costa as I would say for Oakland, it's like having like organized and mobilized Black parents who understand the system and willing to push and fight on the system is super key. I would say we have a good relationship with the superintendent, but separate from that, we hold the superintendent, Kyla Trammell, responsible, right? And we do that through policies and campaigns. We provide cover for her when she needs cover. We push on other things. I mean, I do want to name that our superintendent is not the only person in Oakland in our way. We have issues and challenges with our teachers union when it comes to moving things forward. So I don't want to put all the burden on one leader to transform a system. It is going to take collective strength and power around that. And then I will piggyback off that to say, at the beginning of December, we joined an unprecedented lawsuit. So we filed a lawsuit against the state of California and elected officials, and that includes our superintendent of schools, Tony Thurmond, in terms of like, we've been failing kids again before all of this, and they need to be held accountable. They need to be making sure that they are bringing parents to the table, and they need to be showing us the tangible resources and plans that they are going to put in place. So I think we can use hubs, we can use policies, we can use lawsuits, but all of those things, if you want them to mean something, you gotta have educated and informed parents behind it to push it. Because teachers leave, superintendents leave, such and such leaves, but the folks who stay in the system and are burdened by the system are the same folks who need to be leading the change around the system, and that is the families. If you don't have the families in that position, you will never see the changes that we want to see in our communities.
Thank you. Ms. Audrey, you've been involved in the NAACP. I'd like for you to answer that as well.
Oh, I think Ms. Letisa is absolutely correct. I think having an educated and involved parent base is key to the success of our children. Our parents have to recognize what they students' needs are in the school and whether or not the schools are providing it. And we have to be prepared to step forward and make sure we elect the officials, the school board members, and to make the changes that we need and to make sure that the services that our kids need make the difference. I think it's true. To school board, elected officials come and go, but it's our kids that and our families that have to take the responsibility and step forward and get the job done.
Thank you. Anybody else want to respond?
Yeah, I do. I appreciate Lakeisha and what Audrey said, because that's like right on it. It doesn't matter if you have Black people at the helm, if we don't address the policies and the procedures that are keeping us down, it's going to be the same thing. I always said that as a teacher, as a principal, I'm not racist, but I did have to carry out racist policies and practices because of what was done. And then when you don't have systems set up in your school district, school, wherever, um, and you're still either turning teachers over every 2 years or you have vacancies at your sites, it doesn't matter who's at the helm of the district, you're gonna have these issues. And you do have to work with your parents. And something you said, Dr. Allen, which was great, is how do we get our parents to really advocate? We move away from band-aid approaches, I think is something Goldie said. Did you say that, Goldie? She said something about band-aid approaches. We got to get away from the band-aid approaches and really get into these systems changes. You've got to do what Lakeisha said, but you got to attack the system. And if we're not attacking the system through the bureaucracy and through the policies, we're not going to get anywhere. And I think I want to finish it up. One of the things that one of our Black groups in our district has been talking about is the way that the educational structure is set up during distance learning. It's not set up for all students. And so that's a system and an MOU issue that we have to attack. And unfortunately, during this pandemic, it seems like we won't even be able to get to it, by in another 4 months. So those are things, again, that we got to do. And then, like you said, we got to support Miss Weber on this. And I think that's where that teamwork comes in.
I'd like to say something.
Thank you. I figured, Goldie, you want to say, Audra, I figured you want to say something. So I'm going to start the timer for you for certain. Okay, hold on. I'm ready.
Okay. I think that some of what I feel that I'm going to share, I already felt. And then hearing what a couple of folks said today, emphasize that. Two things come out. Number one, when I was campaigning, I said this repeatedly. Someone said it today, and they talked about times like this. Times like this are presented with a window, and you go, what do you do to respond, and what are we going to do as a community? When you go through every historical change for us as a people, it came from some form of oppression and somebody finally saying, I'm not taking it any longer. And collectively, the group said, and we're not taking it, and we're standing behind it. One thing I would like us to walk away from today is that when somebody said it, they're not coming to save us. So let's just get that clear. The blessing is we do have African Americans in some positions of power. And the curse is that we have some African Americans in positions of power who don't yield and utilize their power and utilize their privilege on behalf of African Americans. So instead of two, I'm gonna stick to one thing. What I wanna walk away today for us as a community is understanding. We need to figure out, we talked about parent engagement, we talked about policy change, and we talked about folks that get voted in and out of office. So one of the things I think that we really have to look at, it doesn't matter who's in office or who's not, who's really for African Americans or who's not. If we're for us as parents and community, we have to literally go back to old school. How do we get the person that doesn't have kids in the district to understand it affects them as well? How do we get the folks down the street? How do we get everybody, and not everybody's gonna show up, but how do we touch every group to say we need parents' involvement? So what if a parent doesn't know how to be involved? One thing I think we need to do, take away judgment. And during this pandemic, let's show some kindness and loveness and forgiveness to each other. I don't care what you don't know. I don't care what you ain't been doing. Let's talk about what we can do now. So all I want to say is it's going to take us as a community. Look at this panel. This is more than one district represented. This is more than one culture represented. We as a community are going to be our salvation. So let's figure out what as a community we can do. One last thing, Lakeisha, I love it. Y'all sued the district. What if every district got together and said, that's it, we're doing a class action lawsuit in the state of California. Audrey, you do it. You're the lawyer.
Okay.
I want to add one more thing, Fatima.
Jasmine,
10 seconds.
Jasmine,
I always just like to,
Jasmine, you see what you're doing to me now? You see what you're doing?
Bring it home. You asked if anybody has something. So I just want to underscore again, I think it's about a reframe, right? Our kids are brilliant. Our students are brilliant. Black kids are amazing. I remember hearing a story about a student at Richmond High that, wasn't doing well or something like that. But then when they tested on the SATs, it was like through the roof numbers. And so how did that student get lost in the mix, right? Why wasn't that student recognized or saw as someone? And so I think it's a reframe. Our schools are failing. Our kids ain't failing. Our schools are failing. And I think to Lakeisha's point, we can't be waiting all day for everybody to come save us. And I come from the Black Organizing Project. That's the organization that I started doing my organizing at, where we were organizing parents in Oakland. And I think we always had a thing of, we're gonna have to create our own solutions. So while we are pushing up against the district, because this is a public institution that should serve everyone, we're going to also create our own things. And so I appreciate Lakeisha and what they did in Oakland, where they created their own spaces to address outcomes for our students. And so we got to start thinking about that ourselves. What are the innovative, creative things that we are going to create to uplift and recognize the brilliance of our Black students in WCCUSD? And I'm done.
Fatima, I would like to hear you answer your own question. Fatima, I would like to hear you answer your question, please.
Look, y'all done turned this around on me now.
I need to hear it.
And don't forget, Fatima, you can say whatever you want.
I can say whatever I want now. All right. So for me, I think it requires, and I could say the term I want to use now, it really requires us to mobilize because we're at war. We've been at war against a system that was never designed to serve a diverse community. It was really to sort the best, which again, who had access, and to leave all the others to fend for themselves. It was a system designed to prepare people to follow directions. Those who can follow directions will continue to gain access and excel. Those who do not pay consequences. They don't have access. That's what I understand our public education system to be. Since the institution was created and established, there's been a shift in what we expect from professionals. We expect for people that occupy the workforce. The system continues to oppress people that look like me, the Latinx, the Native Americans, and so forth, to serve in to be employed in service positions and not leadership positions. So for me, they have strategically placed people that look like me in positions to be the oppressor in the same way that they had the house and the field. So the system is designed, and when people like me try to dismantle and combat the system, people like you try to combat and dismantle the system will protect itself with these barriers to continue the work that they've been doing, which is the oppression. That's what I understand. Believe me, a doctorate from UC Berkeley in material science and engineering has not prevented me from experience the racism, the discrimination, and the oppression of the system. So what it does require is for all of us, because we're going to take the hit. I've taken so many blows, and I continue to do, because I believe that students should not be sent to a school. They should want to go to our schools. And when our schools don't serve students well, you are not obligated to receive $10,000 a year for our students, because my baby, your baby, and everybody's baby is more than just a line item on the budget, in the budget, to pay people who don't care about our kids and who have demonstrated that time and time again. So that's what I think. And I think that Dr. Shirley Weber's absence in the Capitol will continue to put Black students on the back burner, because we don't have anybody, and I'm going to be candid on this, we do not have anybody as an elected official advocating for Black children and willing to compromise their careers as elected officials to do so, because they know they won't be backed by special interest groups. That's why Lakeisha and them had to sue the state of California. That's what I believe. And I'm going to be quiet, because Audrey, that's what happened when you asked.
Well, look, she went quiet, so I got to say that too. Just jumping on what you said, Fatima, is that's evidenced in our district, right? Like, we've had Black leaders who have been pushed out. We often talk about the push out of Black children, but we rarely talk about the push out of Black employees, Black leaders. And, you know, again, speaking candidly, that has happened in our school district. You've had white leaders who can say anything they want, who can do anything they want, who don't know how to look at data, who don't know how to do certain things, especially for Black children. And then you'll have a Black leader who's smarter than a whip, knowing how to do stuff, but then get castigated and pushed out of the system. And those are things that we have to figure out, right? How do we really support the system, which is the children, the families, and the professionals that work in it? How do we all come together? And then how do we understand we all have the same interest, but we might have to go about it different ways? And then which role do each group play? So that's what we've got to really figure out, right? And how do we do more of these type of forums? And then how do we attack the system from the inside out? That's the next thing, because it's got to stop. This is something that is just detrimental, and it's not going to just disappear.
And Will, I think that leads to who are we hiring? Who we hire in our HR departments and our systems shows who our values, right? If we don't have this baked into our hiring practices, who we're bringing in our schools, who our leaders are, then we're going to continue to see these same kind of outcomes, happen over and over and over again. And so until this is like ingrained into like practices in that way, right, we're gonna have to figure out how we make our own, because we can't rely on this system that's been broken for us from the beginning of time.
And so that goes into the education of our electorate, to make sure that our citizens understand what's going on, what the deficiencies are, and the things that need to be addressed, so we are electing the right people, and that the information is put out there, that and our people are out there walking the precincts and making sure that folks understand and elections go in the way they need to go.
So I'm gonna transition us, and we're gonna open it up in a few minutes, but I just want to make one statement. It's important to elect people who will advocate and be accountable for what they say. However, there are special interest groups who are invested in this $100 billion industry in the state of California. They have the money. So when we talk about, when Black Lives Matter, George Floyd, because you asked me to speak, Audrey, so I'm gonna make my statement here. When we had what happened to George Floyd, we were like, oh, we want police reform. We want police reform. Seriously? You know how they got there? You know how they started to engage with police? Let's look at the origin of it. Real talk. Where do you think they came from? Where do you think? Why do you think they engaged?
Patrols.
Huh?
I said slave patrols.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the police unit was established to control, to identify, locate, and control the slaves. We created a police force. And I'm not saying that everybody who decided to serve and protect, right? There are some people that are committed to this in our community and want to invest in their communities positively. However, the ones who are not committed, who took an oath, but didn't really understand what it meant to serve and protect people that don't look like them, are protected because we have unions organized to protect them.
Yes.
And then we say we want change. Well, when they tried to create change in the assembly, guess what happened? What happened to that? What conversation are they having? And I'm not saying what they were proposing was the solution, but what I'm saying is that the traction, the momentum shifted when we started talking about this $100 billion industry, the trillions of dollars. Because then it was, when I run for office, who's going to fund my campaign? That is the real talk, and that is the real problem. Until there's political reform It will not happen as long as we say we want gun reform. Well, guess that won't happen because guess who's controlling that?
Yes.
Who's investing in those campaigns? Who are the ones that are making decisions? So as long as special interest groups can control the elections, and again, education is supposed to be nonpartisan. It's not supposed to be about race.
Yeah.
I mean, about not race, about a political preference. It's not supposed to be about that. So then why are political parties involved in the process? Why
Fatima,
are special interest groups involved in the process? Why are people whose contracts are approved by the people in elected office, why are they involved in the process? There's no oversight or accountability. And unless we have political reform, it will not happen. The accountability is not to the students, is not to the parents, is not to those who want to create change. Their accountability are the people that line their pockets so that they can run for office. So that Fatima, is my statement. And I see Will wait. Lakeisha says she wanted to say something. She's been chatting with me. So hold on. Lakeisha, then Will, then we're gonna open it up.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to be mindful of time in the order of things. Fatima, I just wanted to piggyback off of that and just say, this is why it is critically important for parents to be in the lead. We don't care about, like, you are very much so right. There are unions, there is a whole business around keeping our kids dumb and keeping us down. And the only people that don't care about other people's interests is parents, right? And so I don't want to just underscore the power of parents to shift a district. I want to push the power of parents to shift the whole state when it comes to this, because we're the only people who will fight to the end about our babies. Yeah. To your point, Fatima, earlier, the Oakland Reach, we've been attacked because we are a well-funded, well-resourced organization. But guess what? You need to be well-funded and you need to be well-resourced. You can't build hubs. You can't fight policies. You can't expand. You need big money, okay? Because we don't get to take dues out of people's checks, right? So we need big money to fight. And so I just want to put that out there. It is nothing like the power of educating. Our parents are ready. They care. But we put our parents in these like small sandboxes and we don't unleash their power at the level it can to change the system. Because to everything you said, Fatima, this stuff is rotten to the core, is long-standing, right? And folks will come after, we've been called, there's this term they'll use in Oakland, like, oh, well, we're the real parents, as if we're not the real parents, right? Or we're the paid parents. I said, the last time I checked, I got stretch marks and a birth certificate that tells me I am a bona fide real parent, right? But this is how they will come for Black parents and Black folks that have been in these cities their whole lives, giving up their whole legacy to schools that have continued to fail them, right? But when it's election time, oh, people act crazy. People act crazy and they talk crazy. And it is folks that look like us and it's folks that don't look like us, calling us coons, calling us sellouts, okay? If you want to find the folks that could care, you know what, less, because Fatima, you took us to church, so I'm gonna have to grab a fan, okay? I'm just saying, we're the only people who could care less about all of this. And Fatima, I know exactly where you lead in terms of who is the Black person, right? The only Black person trying to really move things for Black. And that's why we sued the state of California. Because what we saw is there ain't no folks up there, the folk up there working on our behalf. So we'll catch you another way. So I'm just naming that.
So mic drop. What's the next mic drop, Will? And then we got to open it up because it's almost 12. All right.
I got you. The only thing I wanted to say is Maribel and Natalie, are we going to extend this panel? Because now the conversation is real. So we do need to extend it. But, there's money in failure, unfortunately, right? And that's what the issue is that without failure, people ain't going to get paid. And so how do we reverse that? Because we don't need failure. And then, like you said, our Black children, they are intelligent. They're just not engaged. If you telling me I got to sit down in a classroom and learn about something I don't want to learn about, why am I going to sit there and do that? That was what my issue was. And that was what some of my students' issues were, where I just said, come on into my office, let's talk, let's get to it. Right. And then we provided another place for them. I think that we were talking about them slave patrols. When do we learn about that? I didn't learn about that till college, and that was in the ethnic studies class that I got pissed off in and walked out of. So again, why aren't we teaching not just Black children, but all children these type of things early on, which then may create a more empathetic society? And then I think we also discussed, and this will be my mic drop right here, is that two things. Oakland Reach, I would love to see what your model is, because are you a part of the district? Or are you an outside entity? And that's where the change is going to get to, right? Being an outside entity for our Black families. And then we talk about the police being out of the schools. That does not matter when the police are out of the schools, but you got the same people in the schools who call the police on the children still working there. So again, what are we
Who
going to do?
hiring? It go back to who you hiring.
I ain't trying to bash, but I'm just trying to say, how do we teach and learn? All right. We extending the panel, right, Maribel?
Yeah, we extending the panel. Hold up, Lakeisha. Hold up, Lakeisha. We extending the panel because y'all just started something here. Y'all done got me on fire. I was a little tired. And then, you know, y'all done got me. I ain't even have nothing to eat for the day. So we going to get started. We just got started. So we going, I think Lakeisha got, but Lakeisha, before, you know, I practice equity and inclusion. So I want to see if one more person other than you got a little something to say. Now, Lakeisha, I know you ready. I see you, Lakeisha. I want to see if anybody else on the panel want to just do another mic drop.
Well, I don't, but there's some questions in the chat as well, just so that you know.
I see. I'm gonna get to them, but y'all done got me on fire now. So Jasmine, I see you unmuted yourself. You got something to say, Jasmine?
Just gonna underscore what Mr. McGee was talking about again, is who you hiring, right? Like, who are you bringing into these schools? Who are we having to connect with our babies and then really engage with them? It's just really about hiring practices and what we value for our schools.
I think Michael's burning to say something.
Okay, Audrey, go ahead. My drop now.
No, Michael is burning to say something.
Michael, I'm sorry, I can't see everybody, so my bad. And I don't see him. Okay, let me see if I'm looking at something wrong here. Okay, Michael, because I can't see hands raised. I see people telling me there are questions. Oh, okay. I don't see any of that. But Michael, please.
Okay. Earlier, I believe it was Lakeisha brought it up, and a lot of people amened it around organizing parents and educating parents. And I'm a firm believer in that. But I also want to add to that, that not everybody has time and opportunity to be educated, but can still provide valuable support, in the sense that and I'm coming from that 1960s, 1970 model, where when you provide services to people, they trust you. And when they trust you, they show up. Not everybody, maybe William McGee is our speaker, maybe Lakeisha is our speaker, but it makes a whole lot of difference, because Willie touched on it when he talked about administrators. And I'm thinking of one in particular that just get driven out of here that could do the job, but they get driven out because they're out there on their own. And so my whole thing is the mobilization we talked about. We talked about the organization, but the mobilization and the organization has to be preceded by what are we doing to meet people at their most personal points of need. And then when I say we, I mean those of us who are working in the community, those who are working in faith-based organizations, especially, not just those in the district, but those who are concerned about the district, outside of the district. What are we doing to meet the needs of people, so that then when we have a need, they trust us enough, I just need you to be here. And so that's an important element within this whole discussion, is that as we are making demands on the system, let us make demands on ourselves to be more service-oriented to the community we say we love.
Ooh, we service-oriented to the community we say we love. Now, there's one question in the um, in the in the chat that I would like to like someone to respond to. But before we get there, I just want us to, we were talking about hiring practices, right? So let's think about the who is protected and who is not. And so what I've learned as an advocate here, as a board member, is that our principals, the people that are leading the schools, don't have a strong union. Is that correct, Will, Ms. McGee? Are they protected? Do they like can are they truly protected and have the power if they wanted to create change, which is student centered, that they have that structure in place?
I'm gonna give two answers to that. So there is an association or a union, but principals serve at the pleasure of the board. So anybody who is not a teacher serves at the pleasure of the board, meaning you don't have to have a reason. You could just say, hey, we don't want you as a leader anymore. So, and then also principals do not always have the control of who gets hired at their site. And so that is something that we're trying to do. I see through discussions, there's a disconnect between, like organizations, district stuff, and what we can and can't do. But that's something that our office is trying to do is say, how do we attack the hiring policies and procedures? How do you change job descriptions? How do you change interview questions to elicit that type of stuff? Because when you just have canned interview questions, you don't get to the root of, is this person, or do they have biases? Are they racist? But how do we start asking, what do you think about social justice? How have you implemented social justice at your school site? So those are things that the Office of African American Student Achievement is trying to break down and attack as well. So I think, yeah, to answer your question, not as much protection, but there is an association.
There is an association. And what I hear is you serve at the pleasure of the board. So you're at will employees. So that means there's no negotiating, bargaining, all this other stuff that other people have access to in our system. So that means that when we have a leader who is trying to create change, they serve at the pleasure of the board. So if the board is complicit with the oppression of Black, brown, indigenous, students with disabilities, immigrants, all of those, our foster youth, homeless, then we won't see the change that we want to see because they are complicit in the oppression. Because guess what? The people who are funding their campaigns are complicit in the oppression. So I see Ursula's question. So I wanted to give some context and a structure and where the power and authority is and why there's so much money. And we have seen this and we've had the conversation in terms of the elections and where we are and why students have not been served well. So Ursula's question is, would anyone like to comment on the role of teachers' unions and their effect on teacher accountability?
I would like to comment on that.
There is none.
All right, Michael, and I'm going, and Lakeisha, I didn't forget about you. Do you want to answer this or do something else? Okay.
Okay, so as an educational researcher, I've probably been in about 100 schools and about 30 or 40 school districts. In every one of them, the school district has a labor union that is a problem. The only place where I've ever been where the labor union was not a problem, the teacher union was not a problem, is a place called Brentwood, where they didn't have a teachers union until recently. But in every other case, the teachers union is a problem. However, there is a way that they become less of a problem when you engage their leadership, both at the site level and the district leadership level. You engage them in a process whereby they have to defend the existing conditions. And when that happens, it's sort of like you guilty, and it's not until you go to court that things make a difference. Not unlike when we look at the situation with Donald Trump. He talks all that mess outside of court, but the judges say when he gets into court, his lawyers ain't got nothing to say. And so, no, I'm serious, because truth is a buckler. Truth is is the thing that shines a light. And so in this particular case, like I said, I've been in over 100 schools. I've been in over 30 school districts throughout the state of California, every possible place from migrant camps to inner city Los Angeles. And in every case, the union is a problem. But in about half of those cases, you can attack it successfully when you engage them in a process, and then they have to defend the policies that they have in place that support their membership. And in some cases, like I said, probably about half the time, you can make some inroads. But but in every case, the union is a problem. They're not there for the students. They're there for the people who pay their dues.
I was also just going to add there, Fatima, that I think we were maybe having a conversation a few months back, and I was sharing some work that I was trying to do. And I remember us talking, and we were just saying how there's no unions for students and families, right? And so, like, how can the Ed Fund or other organizations in the community be that kind of union and protection for kids and families to ensure that they get the things that they need? The only time I seen a union do something that I was like, I don't know about this, was in Oakland. I had a friend who was working as a teacher there, and she was doing some, curriculum that was incorporating current events and trying to get young folks to think about the things that they were seeing. And they went and fired her. And I was blown away about like how someone was coming in and trying to be innovative and engage young folks in a different way and really meeting them where they are. And she was pushed out. And so then I go to think about like the folks that are being protected in the schools. That's problematic. And until we have those kind of reforms that we were talking about earlier to ensure teachers are held accountable the same way principals are held accountable, or students are held accountable, or families are held accountable, then we are going to continue to see these outcomes, right? But I think it's valuable to have groups like Oakland Reach and others that are in the community acting as that union for families and students.
Thank you.
Is there time for me to comment?
I wanted to open it up. Oh, did you say that you wanted to answer that live, Audrey?
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll give you a minute, and then I have two more questions, or I'll try to get through a few more questions.
My perspective about teachers and teachers union is I look at it this way. I look at it as there are teachers, and then there's their union. Every teacher does not agree with what's happening in the union. Lots of teachers want to step up. Even when I was running for office, teachers would say to me, I support you, but they told me to vote for this and so. I want to support you, but if I do, they're going to come at me. That's very oppressive. That's very, I could go through all the lists of what started in America in terms of, that's just oppressive on so many levels. And going back to what you spoke to about accountability, there's lots of teachers that are saying, hey, I want to get better. But a union comes along and says, this is your barometer. The teacher may want to get to this level, but the union's going up, just do this and that's enough. The union's interest is the union, not necessarily the teacher or the student. And then you've got scenarios where you've got teachers who want to go outside of the box, who want to disrupt the system. It's really simple. When we talk about dismantling systems of oppression, the school system was created for a purpose, and it's doing the purpose that it was created for, and unions support that purpose. So one of the things that has to happen is teachers, like you said, engage them, but you also have to engage teachers to educate them. The same exact thing that has to happen for us as parents being engaged and tearing the system down, teachers have to be, I would say, supported so that they can get comfortable. The reality is there's some scenarios where they won't be fired, but they're led to believe that. So the accountability piece is going to be huge. And what I just heard is we need to figure out, this is some stuff we already said, we need to figure out a huge external organization filled with parents and big money that gives us the ability to address, and so it's almost like rescuing a teacher. If a teacher is trying to come to the real side, to give the teacher the support that they need, and then to be able to hold, the numbers are there. If we can collectively get our numbers, we can address what's been happening to dismantle the system. But simply put, unions aren't necessarily on the side of anybody but unions and whatever money and sources that they get to keep the system in place. They don't care who's successful or not, in my opinion.
All right, so we have, thank you everyone. I have a question from, I would like to call on Talana Moore. Can you ask your question, please?
I'm sorry, I didn't submit a question.
No, do you have a question? Your hand is raised.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Woo, we have lots of questions here. Mariella, do you have a question, please?
Hello, everyone. My name is Mariela Cuellar. I'm glad to be here and learn and see the panelists' faces. I'm learning, and that's why I'm here. A suggestion that I would like to give you in the future is that we at least can see our faces. I think that's a way that we build community and we start building relationships. I would like to ask, I am Latina, so I'm here to learn, and that I know we have so much in common, but we as people of color, we are so divided. And you know, it's hard for me sometimes that we are divided. But my question to you is that for the next steps to get more parents involved, what are your plans? Like, I would like to see that. And also, how can we come together?
Thank you, Mariela. Jasmine, you or someone else, Goldie, Audra,
So
anybody? Or Lakeisha. All right, Lakeisha.
The only reason why I jumped in is because this is a panel focused on African American students, but our organization is actually, I think, 60-40 African American and Latino, right? So I think we're the only organization in Oakland that has a large base of African American families and a large base of Latino families. And we've had to be very, very thoughtful about how to meet the different cultural needs of our Latino and African American families while making sure that we stay connected around the facts that it's our babies that are at the bottom of the scale, right? And the bottom of the bar graph when it comes to academic outcomes, right? So once again, I don't know what's set up in West Contra Costa, and we are happy to connect, but there have been intentional ways over the past half a decade that we have built up the Oakland Reach to serve both Latino families as well as African American families inclusively, and get us to a place where we're not having the racial tensions, right, that we typically see, but that we are literally locking arms and coming together in big spaces and small spaces virtually because we all want the same things. So I just want to name that. And if they are, one of the things I put into the chat was we found a way to present net curriculum to African American students that was focused on African history, but steeped in literacy and math. But guess what? That didn't exist for our Latino families. So then we partnered with an organization to build that curriculum directly for our Latino families, right? So I just wanted to note that, like, it is happening, it can happen. And to the participants' question, it must happen if we really want to shift California.
Thank you. I want
with reference to West Contra Costa, I'd like to say for the
okay,
for the African American parents, this year there is an elected person as the APAC lead, which is the school site lead parents the Black parents who should be working at each of the 52 schools in the district to make sure that the Black children's needs are serviced. Zelon Harrison serves as the chair of that organization. And my understanding of the plan for the plan of this year, working with the Office of African American Student Achievement, we hope to make personal contact with each of the with every school, and to try to make sure that the APACs are organized, that the parents at those schools know who each other are, and that they show up and appear at the school site and talk about what's happening there. And also that they have a relationship and a connection to the central asset group and come in and support and hear what's happening district wide. So we are hoping to organize parents through organizing the APAC and getting that information out.
Thank you.
So
So I want to engage, I want us to be able to answer two more questions. There's one in the chat. So one is, what about an employee's morale and personal responsibility to children? Should employees focus on keeping a job or fighting for educational and social justice? And I would like for Marissa to answer this from a perspective of a student. Like when you go to school, would you want to be educated by someone who is, who's focused on keeping their job, or someone who's fighting for educational and social justice for your access?
I think it's quite obvious that I would want somebody who actually cares about me and my issues. So definitely somebody who cares about social justice, because most of us actually care about social justice. So to share that interest and to actually make something happen, yeah, care about social justice.
Awesome, thank you. There's one of our Casey, you work in a school, what? So
I
should you
do.
should you be focused on a job
No.
or fighting for educational and
Let
social
the,
justice? I'm just asking a question.
that's right. Let the children lead. Sister Davis already told us. And I think that she is 100% correct. And I just want to say, the panel has been fabulous. I'm a note taker, and like everything that I thought I was going to say has already been said. And so I'm always not even impressed or floored by our people, because I know who we are, but I'm just like, okay, so when are we doing this again? And to the point of making sure that in West Contra Costa, our families and our parents have access to this. Like I'm thinking, how many of the parents at my school are actually attending this? And did we do a good enough job of publicizing this? And we try and make sure that anytime they come into our building, they are warmly welcomed, no matter what the need is. But do we do that at every school? And I think, I don't know, I think it was Sister Goldie who said, drop the judgment. And I just love that perspective, because I think as a school leader, what I always have to tell all my teachers is that every family can and every family wants what's best for their child and can support them. They can. And we have to start knowing that families can and want to. And it's our job as a school to support them in pushing us. I tell our families all the time, if you have something, tell me. If you feel like you can't tell me, tell our office assistant, tell anybody. But my core job is to do what's right for your kid. That's my whole reason. And so I think to the social justice piece, or to the moral obligation of teachers, I think teaching is one of our most noble professions. And that we have to remember that most folks go into it with the right intention. And then somewhere along the way, they get burdened or bogged down by X, Y, and Z, and you forget that the light is still there. And like, if we can just help someone refine the light in the teacher, then you can refine the light in the student. And I also think that we can get parents at school board meetings, and parents at school board meetings sort of with a little bit of talking points, and say, we want more teachers of color. The district will listen. If they got to just keep coming, bring the students, like just show up at the places. Because if we can shift that policy, then it doesn't matter to the point of who's in the seat. It doesn't matter, because you have this consistent, coordinated piece of care. And I always think about, in everything, Nina Simone's Mississippi Goddam, of too slow. And we don't have time to wait. So now is the time. We're here today. So tomorrow, everybody, what are we doing differently? How am I connect? So I wrote everybody's name down. You'll be getting email from me. We're like, hey, how are we going to connect next? Right? Like, I know Lakeisha. I haven't seen her in years. Oh, I need to connect again. And it's important to just keep those connections strong, so that all of the kids have the opportunity to go to college. And even if they go to college, like Mr. Gonzalez shared, before we started, just because they thought they could get in, right? Like that's really what we want. They just think they have that level of access. Like, yeah, I show up, I go here now.
Yes.
Yes. All right now. So I would like to thank everybody for joining us today. I want to make a special shout out to all my panelists. So I'm going to just go in order on my screen. So Jasmine, Casey, Audra, aka Goldie, William, aka Will, Miss Audrey, Marissa, Michael, Ebony, Lakeisha. I want to thank you all for showing up for us today. And I just want to say one thing. As long as we keep talking about what kind of school your kids go to, the oppressor continues to win, because now you're not focused on the high quality education that your child deserves. You're too busy fighting about whether traditional schools or charter schools or whatever schools should exist. They keep you oppressed because you are not focused on holding them accountable for the system that was originally created, which is our public education system. So let's continue to have this conversation. Let's continue to put race identity aside, but focus on the students that continue to be left behind. And we know who all those students are. We are committed to not only our Black students, we are committed to the success, I believe everybody here, for all students in our education system, our public education system in our community. We may look a certain way on the outside, but our heart, and I try not to say but, and our heart is for the student to be served, to have access. That's why we joined you today on this Saturday morning and skipped our lunchtime. So join us for our next session. What's the difference between dual language immersion and English only instruction? My kids were in both, so I'm excited to hear about that in our next session.